guys, and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be, I'm doing it for, there's a colouring group called 24/7 Colouring, and on that a number of people were asking questions about watercolour and how to use them in adult colouring books, and kind of wanting to know from scratch. So there are so many questions that I'm not quite sure even where to start. So I thought what I'll do with this video is start where I start and work through a few things of what I want to say. So number one, I'm going to show using some water brush pens. I've got this Arteza 24 set here, and I have some graphics aqua pens. They also have a brush point, and I want to show you how I use them in an adult coloring book, and then I want to explain to you also that with watercolor, it is a medium, as its name implies, that requires water. So it's a wet medium, and what makes it beautiful is that it's often sort of transparent and glowy, and it has a wonderful natural property of its own. So in an adult coloring book, we often don't really want that transparency. We want more of an opaque medium, and we want more vibrant colors. So I think a lot of people are often disappointed in that. Also, when one uses watercolor, the paper makes a huge difference, and it's different to pencils. So with pencils you look for a toothy paper and a certain thickness, etc. With watercolor, there are papers specifically made for watercolor paints, and when they're made, they have what's called sizing in them, and that allows the water to take longer to dry, and so that you have a better chance of spreading that color and allowing it to do its magical thing of blending two colors together. So what I want to do is show you, first of all, this is oh, now I can't open it. This is Mandala Bliss from the Bliss family, from Coloring Bliss, and it's printed on watercolor paper. So I want to show you how I'm using this on watercolor paper, and then I have a little simple book, Teacup Kittens. I'm falling over my own words, and this is printed on normal paper. It's not quite as thin as say Amazon paper is, but I want to show you what happens when you use it in this. Okay, so now I've done that just to try, and you can see that I'm going to move it a bit closer, that you can see where the water dried. Now you may not like that. You could try to smooth it out, but it's not always so easy with watercolor, because as the page is wet, so the paint keeps moving, and this dried with a wet bit going into a dry bit, so you get that line. This was more uniformly wet, so it's a better blend. So I'm going to show you, I think I'm going to make orange here. So I'm using this Arteza pen, and I have two water brush pens, just normal ones. This has got a medium nib, and this has got a fine nib, and I'm going to use this here. I want to show you two things. First of all, just painting it normally on here, and one usually needs to have a piece of paper towel with you when you're doing anything with watercolor. It's just handy. So my desire here is to have this in the vibrant color, the brighter color, and then to let it fade out towards the end. So what I'm going to do now is take my water brush pen, just checking here as to whether it's wet. I don't want it very wet. And I'm adding water from that side already, so it's wet, and then I'm joining this. And then I'm going to tease it out. So you don't need two different colors. You're getting two colors from this. And I want to add a bit more color in, so I'm going further into this and teasing the paint out. I'm not sure with these whether it's water-based ink, or whether it's pigment in water. Cleaning my brush off on the paper towel, and I'll do another one. I rest my hand on paper towel. It's a habit I got into because I use a hang of a lot of hand cream. I have very dry hands. And so I was continuously ruining my books by making them, they'd have like an oily residue where my hand had rested. So I've got into a habit of doing this, which is handy when I'm using gel pens, because then they don't smudge quite as much. So I'm putting that there, using this from this side just to wet it, because water is attracted to water in watercolor, so it goes where it's wet and not so much where it's dry. You can see it's starting to creep out all by itself. So I'm just going to tease it out there. And try to get a smoother blend there. And cleaning this off. Then I want to show you something else you could do with these. Like for instance on these things, I'll do the rest of that off camera. It would look quite nice going from red to orange with maybe some yellow in the middle. And one could try just going on neat like this, as it were. I'm going to try, oh, this is wet, so I don't know. I'm going to rather do it in this circle. I don't want to smudge that, so I'm going from red here, not using the water. To orange, going to blend the two together, just scrummeling. I don't know what the word is when you do it with pencil and you just go round and round and round. It's called scumbling. Bringing this out a bit. Want those to blend nicely, and then the yellow, get that bright at the end and bring it into this and mix the two together. It's like making a cake, isn't it? So that would make quite a nice sort of sunset. I want a bit more orange there, and you can see how the colors are blending into each other. And this needs to be, to keep them blending on the watercolor paper, you need to keep it of an even sort of dampness. So there's that idea. Now, to take normal paper, not watercolor paper, I'm going to try the exact same thing, and my feeling is that it's not going to work, that the paint is not going to spread. And the reason for that is normal paper is porous. So this wet media soaks into it, and then it's not sitting on top like it is in watercolor paper, doing exactly the same, and the paint's going nowhere. Can you see that? It's just eating up the paper. So when you use these in a normal coloring book, you just need to block color. You can get the paint to move a bit more by gently going over each thing with a little bit of plain water first, then adding this is a bit paler because now it's wet, it's spreading, and seeing if you can quickly get it to spread. No, it still doesn't want to. You also can't really blend two colors together very well like you could on the watercolor paper. So I'll show you. I'm just putting this down first. And then using a slightly lighter one here. Trying to go in while it's still slightly damp. That's not doing too badly. And then going up at the top. Sorry, I'm going out of the lines. I can't see very well. So what you would need to do to try and blend the two colors together is to not try and pull out the one color, very lightly flick up, and then while that is still slightly damp, flick down into it and go over the bit that's been done already and then go up there. So I don't know if that makes any sense. All right, now I also wanted to just show you that you can also use, I'm going to use, no, I want to do that another day. You can also use like a palette of paints. So this is called the Classics. It's a very nice palette of paints actually, Prima watercolors. And there's a fairly nice green there. If you've got a palette like this of paints, then the thing to do is to take just an ordinary spray bottle with water and just spray them first. Then always have your paper towel. Then you need a paintbrush. I find for adult coloring books, a size 6 for largish areas. Although I wouldn't if it wasn't watercolor, if it's not watercolor paper and you haven't prepared the page with something like gesso, which I'll show you in another video, then I wouldn't attempt a large area like that. But for small areas you could use a size 2. This is a Princeton Snap Brush. I'll put a link to these things under the video. And a teeny tiny 00, which helps you get into small places. So now you also need a vessel of water, okay? So you're going to wet your brush in the water and you're going to wipe it off on the side, and it needs to be nice and wet. And then wipe it on the side, excuse me, then go into your paint color that you want. It's quite thick and creamy there. I always then take it over onto a palette. You can either use a palette or you can just use a saucer or anything like that. I like to do this because it gives you the opportunity to mix colors if you want to. So we've got that there. So on the brush, I'm going to wipe the brush off on the edge a little bit. I'm going to check it on a piece of scrap paper to see. I don't want it very wet, and then I'm going to go in and paint. So if you felt like using your watercolors, you can easily do that, and then because there's more water attached here, you could rinse your brush off, wipe it on the side, and then slightly dry it off on the paper. It's still damp, and then tease this out a little bit, and this will come, it will follow the water, and you'll get a little bit of a blend. Let me do that again. I'm going to just load, it's called loading some more paint onto the brush here, although in this particular instance that area is too small for this brush even. So just cleaning it off, and oops, I don't want to go over there, using the teeny tiny one. So I'm wetting the brush, I'm going into the paint, I'm taking it off the edge. The smaller brush doesn't hold that much paint, but it's easier to control where you're painting. And if I want this middle bit to be a little bit darker, then I'm just going to go directly onto there and add it in. Oopsie. And I will say it takes a while to develop some control for the brush. That's a bit of a line, so I'm rinsing my brush, I'm drying it off, and I'm teasing the edge into the wet area. So I want to show you the same sort of thing on the watercolor paper. This is dry now. So I'm going to use, I can just feel myself getting joyous because I like this. So I'm using this bigger brush. The brush is dry at the moment, so this little red thing at the bottom is just something I have for cleaning a brush, which you don't have to have. Wetting it, just taking it off a bit. Then I'm going to take this red and I'm going to start here. Painting like this onto a dry paper, even if it's watercolor paper, is called wet on dry, okay? You get different watercolor techniques, and I'll show you something in a minute. So this, you can see the paint is dry, the brush is getting dry. I'm just bringing it to the end so it doesn't want to go anywhere. Wetting the brush, I want to use some orange now. I'm kissing the two together. They're getting to know each other. Hello red, hello orange. So you can see that they blend so nicely. This is much more wet, so it's looking different to that. I'm just teasing that back in there and rinsing my brush. Can you see a little line happening there? It's because of the difference in dryness. So I'm taking some of that off and I'm taking water over the area so that the two can play. All right. Now I'm going to use this red again on this side. Got a lot more water on than I had on this other side. And as you can see with these paints, they're quite nice, vibrant colors. Oh, I've gone out the lines. I want to show you a trick just now, but I want to, so I need a bit more paint there. The page does curl a little bit, so that's why I've got my finger here holding it down. So there's a bit too much water there. So taking the paper towel, drying my brush off, pop the brush into that as dry, and it works like a sponge, lifts up some of that water, and I can spread it around and get more of what I wanted. I hope that explains something to you. Rinsing the brush off, going into the orange, these are better matched in their wetness. So watercolor is all about water and water control, and you can have done watercolor for years and years and be learning still. It's a real craft. I don't know what word to use. It's something that takes. There's so much to learn, and there's so much that I don't know about it. Okay, so now I've got those two to the middle. And now I think rather than using yellow, I'm going to wet my brush, take some of the water off, and tease this out into the middle from both sides. And it will get more pale, because the more water you add, the paler the color becomes. So you don't add white, and that's what I mean by translucent. So I'm not thrilled with this bit here. Didn't have my water control very good. Drying this off a bit and just going over this a bit more. And drying it off a bit more. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Rinsing it, drying it off. Drying it off. Drying it off. And there we are. Now, you can see these messes here. I should leave this to dry completely before I do this, but I'm going to see if I can do it. Taking clean water and a clean paper towel, wet your brush and go over the mistake you made. Some paints stain more than others, so you've got it very wet. Take your paper towel, boom, press down, and you've lifted it. Same thing here. Wet this paper towel in, boom, and you've lifted it. Going to do the same over here. Just make sure I've got some clean bits of paper towel. Going over that, lift it, and you've lifted it, and to this bit here, and you've lifted it. Now there's a little piece there that's gone white that I lifted by mistake, so I'm going to see, in a way there's still this bit is not nice here. In a way I need to dry, to allow this to dry, and then do another layer. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it get completely dry and then do another layer. Okay, so this is dry, and I've finished some of this off camera. I wanted to just go over this little bit again. To see if we can get it a bit smoother. I have half a mind to try what's called the wet on wet technique here. And to do that, one takes clean water, so your brush is wet. I've rinsed it in the water. I've taken it over the side. I've dabbed it off over the side, and I'm just putting water down. It's not going to work because and now I've wet that. I'm adding some more red, and I'm going in with that. Then this is too wet. It's got, don't know if you can see that it's got a puddle. Sort of, it's just too wet. It's moving backwards and forwards. So I don't want that because it gives bad edges. So I'm blotting up some of that. And I'm spreading what's left again. And now blotting that, spreading what's left, rinsing brush, taking some of the orange and going in from that side so that the two can get married together there. Whoops, I splashed water everywhere. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side here. Wetting this. I'm not going where the pale bit is because I don't want the dark to bleed into there just yet. Rinsing the brush, taking some of the red paint, going in, rinsing the brush, drying it off, dabbing up some of the wet puddle, spreading that around, getting some orange paint, going in from this side. Now just orange over here, and bringing it in here, and the same on the other side. Sorry I'm working so quickly, but that's the trouble, it mustn't dry. Same on this side here, just orange. Oops, wrong side. Ah, wondered why that looked so funny, looked different. Oh dear. Quick fix. There we are. So just orange here. And into those two. And now rinsing my brush. I don't want it very wet. And wetting both sides. And bringing the water over so that they can join. I hope that makes sense to you. There we are. I hope that this has been helpful, and I'll try to do another video on some other watercolor techniques for you soon. All right, thank you very much for watching, and please let me know in the comments if there's anything you need me to answer about this. Bye-bye now, and have a colorful day.